The crash and the encounter. The sky was burning. Zara groaned as she pulled herself from the wreckage of her ship. Smoke curled into the dark sky, and the acrid scent of burning metal filled her nostrils. Her heart pounded in her chest. She had crashed on an unknown planet, alone. Pain shot through her left arm. She looked down and gasped. Her arm was bent at a horrible angle. Broken. She clenched her teeth, trying not to panic. She was a Solarian, a species known for their intelligence and advanced technology, not for pain tolerance. Zara pressed a button on her wrist device, hoping to activate the medical nanites. A small screen flickered. Error. System failure. The crash had damaged her suit. The nanites wouldn't work. She sucked in a shaky breath. This was bad. A noise came from the trees. Zara froze. Something was watching her. She reached for her sidearm, but it was gone, probably lost in the crash. Her heart pounded. The bushes rustled. Then she saw it. A creature stepped forward, walking upright. Tall, strong, eyes sharp like a predator. A human. Zara had never seen one in real life, only in Solarian history logs. Humans were unpredictable, dangerous, survivors of the deadliest conditions. Fighters. Monsters in war. The human stopped a few feet away, arms raised slightly, as if showing he wasn't a threat. But Zara didn't believe it. No human was truly safe. "You're hurt," the human said. His voice was deep, steady. Zara flinched. She didn't like the way he looked at her injury, like he already knew what to do. "I am fine," she lied, backing up. He raised an eyebrow. "Your arm is broken." Zara didn't reply. She didn't trust him. The human sighed and took a step forward. Zara stiffened. "Listen, you need to set the bone before it swells. If you wait too long, it'll be worse." She glared at him. "I will wait for rescue." The human let out a short laugh. "No one's coming, alien. The crash site is deep in the wild, and you won't last long with that arm." Zara narrowed her eyes. "I do not need help from a primitive species." The human smirked. "Primitive." He pointed at her wrist device. "That thing working." She hesitated. Then, reluctantly, she shook her head. "Then I guess you're stuck with primitive methods." Before she could protest, he grabbed her arm. Pain exploded through her body. She screamed. The human ignored her, gripping her broken limb firmly. Zara tried to yank away, but he was too strong. She gasped as he twisted the arm slightly, feeling along the bone. What are you doing?" She choked out, her vision swimming. The human didn't answer. He just nodded to himself and muttered, "All right. Hold still." She did not hold still. Stop. Crack kick. A white-hot bolt of pain shot through her body. She screamed louder than she ever had in her life. Then, suddenly, it was over. Zara gasped, her whole body trembling. The pain was still there, but it was different now. The terrible, unnatural bend in her arm was gone. The bone was reset. She stared at the human in horror. You barbarian." The human chuckled, wiping sweat from his brow. "Barbaric. Maybe. But your arm is straight now. Wrap it up and don't move it." Zara cradled her arm, still shaking. You did that with your hands." "Yep. That is unnatural." The human grinned. "Nah, just old-fashioned." Zara shuddered. Solarians used high-tech healing chambers for broken bones. They would never touch an injury like that. What kind of species did this by hand? The human stood up and looked toward the trees. His smile faded. Zara followed his gaze and felt a new wave of fear. Glowing eyes, watching them from the darkness. The human pulled a knife from his belt. His entire posture changed. "We need to move. Now." Zara swallowed. She didn't trust him. She didn't like him. But right now, he was the only chance she had. Survival in a hostile world. Zara's arm throbbed with dull pain as she followed the human through the dense, shadowy forest. Every step sent sharp jolts up her limbs, but she refused to complain. She was Silurian, not weak. But the way this human had reset her bone with his bare hands still haunted her. No anesthetic, no scanner, no surgical gloves, just raw instinct and brutal efficiency. It was terrifying. The human walked ahead, his movements silent despite the thick underbrush. Zyra had studied humans before. They weren't the strongest or fastest species in the galaxy, but something about them made them unpredictable. And right now, unpredictability might be the only thing keeping her alive. Something is following them. The low growl came again. A predator. Close. Zyra's sensitive hearing picked up the rustle of leaves, the faint scrape of claws on bark. Something was tracking them, moving with patience, with intelligence. "We need to move faster," she whispered. The human didn't reply. Instead, he crouched, pressing his fingers into the dirt. He studied the ground, his eyes narrowing as if he could read the earth itself. Zyra scoffed. "What are you doing?" "Tracking," he muttered. "Something big. Been following us since the wreck. Smells blood. Maybe yours." Zyra's stomach twisted. Silurians were apex predators on their homeworld. But here, she was the prey. The human stood up and glanced at her. "Can you run?" She clenched her teeth. Yes. He didn't argue. He just started moving. Fast. Zyra followed, struggling to keep up. Her lungs burned, but she pushed forward. The growls behind them grew louder. The hunter appears. Then, without warning, it struck. A massive shadow lunged from the trees, a blur of muscle, claws, and teeth. Zyra barely dodged as a hulking beast landed where she had been standing a second ago. It was huge, 8 feet tall, covered in matted fur and armored scales, with razor-sharp tusks curling from its mouth. Her breath caught. A Kargath. A top predator. The human didn't hesitate. He moved first. He grabbed a thick branch from the ground and swung hard. The branch snapped in half against the Kargath's thick hide. It barely flinched. Zyra reached for her belt. No weapon, no tech, no way to fight. The Kargath roared and charged at the human. He didn't run. He stepped toward it. Zyra's eyes widened. Was he insane? The human ducked under the beast's first swipe and punched it in the throat. The Kargath stumbled, choked. Zyra had no time to be shocked. She spotted a sharp bone shard from the wreckage nearby, grabbed it, and threw it. The shard stabbed deep into the beast's side. It howled in pain. That was all the human needed. He grabbed a fallen tree limb, thick, heavy, and swung like a warhammer. The impact cracked against the beast's skull. The Kargath staggered, snarled, then collapsed. Silence. Zyra gasped for breath, her heart slamming against her ribs. The human stood over the fallen predator, breathing heavily. Then he looked at her. "You throw pretty well." She swallowed, still in shock. "And you fight like a lunatic." He grinned. "That's what my people do." Newfound respect. Zyra stared at the unconscious Kargath. Her people feared humans for a reason. They weren't just strong. They weren't just fast. They refused to die. In Silurian culture, warriors fought with precision. Smart, calculated movements. Battles were about strategy, efficiency, never brute force. Humans didn't care. They fought like animals. Pure survival instinct. No hesitation. No fear. And yet, she was still alive because of it. A moment of truth. The human wiped blood from his brow and turned. "We need to get to higher ground. That thing's not the only predator here." Zyra hesitated. A Silurian should never trust a human. But this human had already reset her bone. Fought a Kargath for her. Saved her life. Maybe, just maybe, he wasn't like the stories. She exhaled. "Lead the way, human." The human chuckled. Name's Cole, by the way. Zyra didn't reply. She wasn't ready for first-name familiarity. Not yet. As they disappeared into the jungle, one thought kept repeating in her mind. What kind of creatures are humans? The truth about humanity. Zyra's legs burned as she climbed the steep ridge behind Cole. The jungle stretched below them, thick with towering trees and twisting vines, the air heavy with the scent of damp earth. The distant roars of predators echoed in the valley, a constant reminder of the death waiting below. She shouldn't be here. She shouldn't be following a human. And yet, he had saved her life twice now. First by setting her bone. Barbaric, but effective. And then by fighting off a Kargith with nothing but his fists and a tree branch. Her mind still struggled to process what she had seen. No advanced tech, no exosuit, no fear, and worst of all, he won. Zyra was a Xilarian, a species that prided itself on superior intelligence and advanced medical technology. Humans were supposed to be primitive, unpredictable, reckless. But now she was starting to think, maybe that wasn't a weakness. The fire and the questions. As they reached the top of the ridge, Cole found a small cave, deep enough to keep them hidden for the night. He gathered some dried branches, crouched low, and before Zyra could react, struck a small metal object against a rock. A spark, a flicker, then fire. Zyra stumbled back, eyes wide. "What are you doing?" Cole tossed a few more dry leaves into the flames. "Making a fire." She stared at him, horrified. You just created combustion with your hands." He smirked. "It's called a lighter alien, not magic." Zyra had seen fire before, of course, but on Xilaria, fire was controlled through plasma generators. Machines managed it, contained it. The idea of starting one by hand felt dangerous, wild. She sat down, keeping her distance from the flickering flames. Humans were terrifying. Cole glanced at her, then stretched his legs, resting his back against the cave wall. "You're looking at me like I grew a second head." Zyra hesitated. Then she spoke the question burning in her mind. "Why do humans fight like that?" Cole raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" Like beasts. No strategy. No elegance. You don't hesitate. You don't wait. You just attack." Cole let out a breath, staring into the fire. For a moment, he didn't answer. Then he leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "You ever heard of Earth?" he asked. Zyra frowned. "Only in Xilarian war records. It was classified as a high-risk system. Your kind is considered unpredictable." Cole chuckled. "Yeah, that sounds about right." Zyra crossed her arms. "Why?" He looked at her, eyes sharp in the firelight. "Because our homeworld tried to kill us." Zyra blinked. "What?" Cole picked up a stick and poked the fire. "Earth isn't like your world, Zyra. It doesn't take care of you. It doesn't give you easy seasons or gentle predators. Everything there wants you dead." Zyra listened in stunned silence as he spoke. "You break a bone. You either fix it or die. You get sick. You survive or you don't. You face a predator. You either fight or you get eaten." He tossed the stick into the flames. "For thousands of years, my ancestors didn't have technology. They had rocks, bones, fire, and sheer stubbornness. That's it." Zyra swallowed. "That's why you're like this." Cole nodded. "Humans didn't get to choose to be strong. We had to be." She shivered. No wonder the Galactic Council feared humans. They weren't just fighters. They were survivors. And then something even more chilling hit her. What if the war records were wrong? What if humans weren't unpredictable at all? What if they were simply too dangerous to fight? A hard truth. The fire crackled between them. Zyra studied Cole carefully. He didn't look like a monster. He had no claws, no natural armor, no cybernetic implants. He was just human. And yet, He had set her bone with his bare hands. And yet he had fought off a Kargath with nothing but instinct. And yet he had survived a world that would have killed her kind long ago. For the first time in her life, Zyra wondered, were humans the real apex species of the galaxy? Cole glanced at her and smirked. You're thinking hard over there, alien, regretting your life choices. Zyra let out a breath. No, just realizing I might have underestimated your kind. Cole chuckled. Get some rest, Zyra. We've got a long way to go tomorrow. Zyra hesitated before finally lying down on the cold cave floor. She didn't know where this journey would take them, but one thing was certain. She would never look at humans the same way again. The Great Escape. The night was eerily quiet. Zyra lay awake on the cold cave floor, staring at the flickering firelight on the stone ceiling. Cole was asleep nearby, one arm resting on his chest, the other curled around his knife. Even in sleep, he looked ready for battle. Zyra envied that. She had trained in controlled environments, Silurian battle simulations, tactical exercises, war games played with data projections and holograms. But this, surviving in the wild. Fighting off beasts with nothing but brute strength and instinct. This was not what she was trained for. She exhaled slowly, rubbing her bandaged arm. The human had done a crude job resetting her bone, but the pain was manageable. What disturbed her more was how easily he had done it. What kind of creatures reset bones like it was nothing? She had spent her whole life thinking humans were primitive. Now she wasn't sure. Then, a sound. Zyra's ears twitched. Something was moving outside the cave. Not an animal. Something bigger, heavier. They are not alone. She reached for Cole, shaking his shoulder. Wake up. His eyes snapped open instantly, sharp and alert. No grogginess, no confusion, just pure readiness. Zyra whispered, something's out there. Cole sat up, silent. He listened for a moment, then moved toward the entrance. He didn't hesitate. He didn't ask questions. He just moved. Zyra followed, every nerve on edge. The fire had burned low, casting deep shadows across the cave walls. Outside, the jungle was still except for the occasional rustling of leaves. Then, a red light blinked in the distance. Zyra's breath caught. Drones, Silurian drones. She grabbed Cole's arm. We have to go. Now. He frowned. Those yours. She hesitated. They are Silurian military drones, but I don't know if they're here to rescue me, or to make sure no one finds out I was here. Cole's expression darkened. Your people leave survivors behind. Zyra didn't answer. The truth was, sometimes, they did. The hunt begins. Cole moved fast. We can't fight drones. We run. Zyra didn't argue. She followed him down the ridge, into the thick jungle below. The drones whirred above, scanning the area with bright red beams. Their sensors could detect life signs, track footprints, analyze heat signatures. They were some of the most advanced machines in the galaxy. And yet, somehow, Cole stayed ahead of them. He moved like a ghost, avoiding open spaces, keeping to the shadows. Zyra tried to follow his movements, but it was impossible. He didn't just run. He adapted. When the drones swept low, he crouched behind thick roots, barely breathing. When they passed overhead, he pressed himself against wet rock, his body blending into the dark. When they hovered too close, he threw a small stone in the opposite direction, creating a distraction. Silurians didn't move like this. Zyra was fast, but she was used to moving in straight lines, calculated paths. Cole moved like a predator, sideways, backwards, unpredictable. And it worked. The drones moved past them, scanning in the wrong direction. Cole smirked. Not so smart, huh? Zyra glared at him. They are programmed for logical movement. You are not logical. He chuckled. Thanks. She wasn't sure if that was a compliment. The Rowan outpost. After nearly an hour of running, they reached a clearing. The jungle gave way to a massive, abandoned structure, a ruined outpost covered in vines and rust. Zyra's breath caught. This is not Silurian. Cole frowned. No. She shook her head. This is old. Pre-galactic war. Could be human, but she ran a hand along the metal wall. Something else was here first. Cole studied the structure, his expression unreadable. We can hide here. Zyra hesitated. Something felt wrong about this place. But the drones were still hunting them. They had no choice. They slipped inside. The interior was dark, filled with broken equipment, shattered glass, and the faint scent of something rotten. Cole held up a hand. Stop. Zyra tensed. What? He pointed at the ground. Footprints. Fresh. Zyra's blood ran cold. We are not alone. The enemy revealed. A low, guttural, clicking sound echoed through the outpost. Zyra turned sharply, scanning the darkness. Cole was already crouched, knife in hand. Then, movement. Something tall, thin, and fast darted between the shadows. Zyra's stomach twisted. Not Silurian. Not human. Something else. Cole whispered, "Friend of yours." Zyra shook her head. "I do not know this species." Another clicking sound. Closer. Then the creature stepped into the dim light. Zyra's breath caught. It was insectoid, with 4 elongated arms, black exoskeleton, and empty white eyes. It stood on 2 digitigrade legs, its mouth lined with sharp, needle-like teeth. And it was smiling. Cole exhaled. Well, that's new. The creature tilted its head, watching them with unsettling curiosity. Then it spoke, in a voice that was almost amused. You are lost. Zyra's blood ran cold. It wasn't just some mindless beast. It was intelligent. Cole tensed. Yeah, and what are you? The creature's grin widened. Your predator. Zyra barely had time to react before the creature lunged. The final battle. The creature lunged. Zyra dove sideways, barely avoiding its claws as they sliced through the air where her head had been. Cole rolled in the opposite direction, coming up with his knife drawn. The alien moved like a blur, too fast, too fluid, like a predator that had hunted 1,000 times before. Zyra had faced combat simulations, but this was different. There was no pattern, no logic, just instinct and raw speed. Cole didn't hesitate. He attacked first. He lunged forward, slashing with his knife, but the creature dodged with unnatural grace. It wasn't just fast, it was toying with them. Then it spoke. Fascinating. Zyra's skin crawled. The creature's voice was too smooth, too controlled, like it was analyzing every movement they made. Cole narrowed his eyes. Yeah. Let's see how fascinating you find this. He grabbed a rusted metal pipe from the floor and swung, hard. The pipe connected with the creature's jaw. The impact snapped its head sideways, sending it stumbling. Zyra's eyes widened. It could be hurt. Cole didn't stop. He moved in again, but this time, the creature was ready. It caught the pipe mid-swing. Zyra barely had time to shout a warning before the alien twisted, ripping the weapon from Cole's hands and hurling him into a metal wall. Cole hit hard and slumped to the ground. Zyra's heart pounded. She had seconds to act. She grabbed a shard of broken glass from the floor, adjusted her grip, and lunged. The creature turned at the last moment, its white eyes locking onto her. It didn't expect her to attack. Zyra used that hesitation. She drove the glass deep into its side. The alien let out a terrible, inhuman screech. Cole coughed from where he lay. You stabbed it. Zyra panted. Yes. Cole gave a bloody grin. See, you're learning. But the fight wasn't over. The true threat. The creature stumbled, black ichor dripping from its wound. But it wasn't retreating. It was laughing. Pain, it whispered. I have not felt this in a long time. Zyra swallowed hard. What kind of creature enjoy pain? Then, a new sound. A distant mechanical whirring echoed through the ruins. Cole and Zira froze. Drones. Silurian military drones. They had finally found them. Nowhere left to run. Cole gritted his teeth. Great, your people picked a really bad time to show up. Zira barely heard him. Her mind was racing. If the drones saw Cole, he was dead. Humans were already labeled as dangerous anomalies by the Galactic Council if her people found her with one, especially after an unauthorized crash. They wouldn't ask questions. They'd eliminate him. And she wasn't sure if they'd let her live either. She made her decision in a heartbeat. We need to go. Now. Cole frowned. And run where? Zira scanned the room desperately. Then she saw it, a collapsed tunnel, partially hidden behind old debris. She grabbed Cole's arm and pulled. Through there. He didn't argue. Together, they bolted, leaving the wounded alien behind. It didn't chase them. Instead, its eerie voice followed them through the ruins. Run, little creatures. Run while you still can. Betrayed by her own people. The tunnel was dark and unstable, filled with broken machinery and crumbling walls. But Zira didn't care. They had to keep moving. Behind them, the drones swept through the ruins, scanning everything in their path. Then, a voice crackled through her wrist communicator. Zira, respond. This is Commander Xeric. Your distress signal was received. Stand by for retrieval. Her heart stopped. She hadn't activated her distress beacon, which meant her people had been tracking her the entire time. Her mouth went dry. Understood, Commander. A pause. Then, are you alone? Zira's stomach twisted. She glanced at Cole, who was watching her carefully. She knew what would happen if she said no. She hesitated for 1 second too long. Commander Xeric's voice turned cold. Zira, repeat. Are you alone? She couldn't answer. The silence said enough. A new choice. Then, the drones changed direction. They were coming straight for them. Cole heard the shift in their engines and tensed. They know, don't they? Zira clenched her fists. Yes. Cole exhaled, then shook his head. Go, I'll find another way. She stared at him. What? He gave her a tired smile. They're looking for you, not me. Go back to your people. Tell them you barely survived. They'll never know I was here. Zira felt something twist in her chest. He thought she was going to leave him. He thought she would run back to the Accelerians and let them erase all evidence that a human had saved her life. For a long moment, she didn't move. Then, she pulled off her wrist communicator and crushed it under her boot. Cole's eyes widened. What the hell are you doing? She grabbed his wrist. You saved my life, human. I won't let them take yours. Cole blinked. Then, for the first time, he actually looked stunned. Then, he grinned. Well, Dan, never thought I'd see a Accelerian commit treason for me. She sighed. Shut up and run. Together, they disappeared into the tunnels, leaving the Accelerian drones searching for a survivor that no longer existed. Betrayal and revelation. Zira ran. Her lungs burned, her legs ached, but she didn't stop. The drones were everywhere, sweeping the ruins with their red searchlights. Her own people were hunting her now. She had chosen a human over the Accelerian Empire. And there was no turning back. Beside her, Cole moved like a ghost, silent, fast, never hesitating. He didn't ask questions. He didn't waste time. He just ran. That was the difference between humans and Accelerians. Accelerians debated. Humans acted. The secret path. The tunnels twisted beneath the ruins, ancient corridors that hadn't been touched in centuries. Zira wasn't sure where they were going, but anywhere was better than staying. They reached a fork in the path. One tunnel sloped downward, deep into the earth. The other led up, toward an exit, maybe, or another death trap. Cole stopped, breathing hard. Which way? Zara scanned the walls. Faint markings. Not Silurian. Something older. This way, she pointed down. Cole frowned. Down. We need to get out, not go deeper. Zara shook her head. The drones will expect us to run up. If we go down, we buy time. Cole studied her for a moment, then nodded. Lead the way. She didn't know why, but his trust in her decision sent a strange warmth through her chest. They descended. A lost civilization. The air grew colder, thicker. The walls became smoother, the marks more deliberate. Zara ran a hand over the symbols. Ancient, older than any Silurian structure. Cole noticed her hesitation. What is it? These ruins, she swallowed. They're not from my people. This place is older than the Galactic Council itself. Cole exhaled. Great. We're hiding in a dead civilization's basement. Zara ignored him, pressing a hand against one of the walls. It lit up. A soft blue glow spread through the symbols, pulsing with energy. Cole took a step back. That's not normal. Zara was too stunned to answer. This technology was still alive. Which meant something else was too. The hidden chamber. A low humming sound filled the tunnel. Then, the wall shifted, revealing the hidden doorway. Cole raised an eyebrow. Let me guess. You've never seen this before. Zara shook her head. No, and that terrifies me. Cole grinned. Cool. Let's check it out. Before she could protest, he stepped inside. Zara cursed and followed. The chamber was vast, lined with massive metal structures, glowing softly with the same blue light. The air smelled old, stale, like something had been sealed here for a very long time. Zara walked to one of the consoles. The symbols were similar to Silurian script, but not the same. Cole ran a hand over a massive circular door at the far end. Feels like a vault. Zara studied the symbols again. Then realization hit her like a shockwave. Her stomach twisted. This isn't a vault, she whispered. Cole turned. Then what is it? Zara met his gaze. A prison. The Forgotten War. Cole stepped back from the door. A prison for what? Zara's throat went dry. I don't know. But this technology. She motioned to the glowing walls. It's not Silurian. It's pre-council era, which means whatever's behind that door was locked away before our time. Cole's expression darkened. So we found an ancient jail cell. Fantastic. Then, a new sound. A soft, mechanical beep. Zara turned sharply. One of the consoles was activating. Cole muttered, Tell me you didn't just wake something up. I didn't touch anything. Zara snapped. The screen lit up. Lines of strange text scrolled across it, too fast for her to read. Then, a deep mechanical voice spoke. Prison statues. Vioriashashiti. Zara's stomach dropped. Cole took a slow step back. That's not good. The ground rumbled. Zara turned to the massive vault door. It was unlocking. A warning siren blared through the ruins. Then, a voice. Not from the computer. A real voice. Ancient. Hollow. Cold. Who disturbs my rest? Zara's breath caught. This wasn't a recording. Something inside was waking up. The true enemy. The vault door hissed, releasing a blast of frozen air. Zara's instincts screamed run. 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 But her legs wouldn't move. A shadow stepped forward. It was tall. Too tall. Almost twice Cole's height. Its frame thin but powerful. Its face hidden beneath a cracked metallic mask. Its eyes burned blue. Cole didn't move. You seeing this? Zara swallowed. I see it. The figure tilted its head. Its voice was ancient, distorted, filled with knowledge and malice. Ah, Exilarian. And a human. Zara stiffened. How did it know their species? Cole exhaled. I really don't like how it said human just now. The figure took a slow step forward. You are far from home, little creatures. Zyra's hand hovered over her belt, but she had no weapon, no escape. Cole tightened his grip on his knife. Yeah, well, we were just leaving. The figure laughed softly. Oh, but you just got here. It reached out with one clawed hand. The air crackled around it. A shockwave slammed into them. Zyra hit the ground hard, pain shooting through her ribs. Cole gritted his teeth, pushing up on one elbow. Okay, that sucked. The figure stepped closer. I have slept for millennia, it murmured. And now, I wake. Zyra's hands shook. She had thought that Solarians were the strongest, that humans were the most dangerous. But whatever this was, it was something far worse, and they had just set it free. The ultimate decision. Zyra's breath was shallow, her body frozen as the ancient figure stepped forward. Its glowing blue eyes bored into her, its towering form radiating an unnatural presence. She had faced death before, but never like this. Cole, ever the reckless human, slowly got to his feet, knife in hand. Zyra noticed the tightness in his grip, the tension in his jaw. He was ready to fight, against something they didn't even understand. The ancient being tilted its head, studying them like insects. Then, in a voice that echoed with centuries of decay, it spoke. It has been so long. The room shuddered. The air grew thick, the temperature dropping fast. Zyra's voice barely came out. What are you? The figure chuckled, a sound like rust grinding against metal. Ah, the arrogance of the young. You do not even remember what you buried. Asterisk asterisk. Zyra's stomach twisted. This was not just some forgotten prisoner. It was something her people had tried to erase from history. Cole tensed. Well, I don't know about her, but I sure as hell didn't bury you. The figure turned its glowing gaze toward him. Ah, but your kind remembers me. Zyra's blood ran cold. Cole frowned. What? The figure took another slow step forward. Human. Zyra flinched. The way it said the word, it was not with curiosity, not with amusement. It was with recognition. It knew what Cole was. Cole, still gripping his knife, narrowed his eyes. And how do you know about humans? The figure smiled beneath its cracked mask. Because I fought them. Zyra gasped. That's impossible. The Council only discovered Earth a century ago. The figure chuckled. Ah, you truly believe that, do you? Its eyes burned brighter. I fought your kind in a war long before your precious council existed. A war that Solarians tried to forget. But the humans, they'd never forget, do they? Cole stared at him. You're telling me my ancestors fought you? The figure's smile widened. Not just fought me, little human. They won. The forgotten war. Zyra's entire understanding of history shattered. Her people were one of the first to rise in the galactic age, or so she had been taught. But this thing, this creature from a forgotten time, claimed that humans had fought an ancient war long before they were spacefaring. Cole clenched his fists. You expect me to believe my people went up against something like you and won? We've barely been in space 100 years. The figure let out a low, rumbling laugh. Ah, but who told you that, human? Your council. Your leaders. It gestured to Zyra. Her people rewrote history. And yours were made to forget. Zyra shook her head. That's a lie. The being's glowing gaze settled on her. Is it? The air crackled with energy, and suddenly, visions flooded Zyra's mind. She saw war. Not the clean, calculated Solarian battles of today, but something primal, devastating. Ships burning in the void, planets reduced to ash, creatures like this one, standing among the ruins, and humans. Not the diplomatic, politically contained humans of today, but warriors, scared, relentless, unstoppable. Fighting, dying, winning. Zara stumbled back, gasping. The vision was gone, but the weight of it remained. Her voice was hoarse. "It's true." Cole grabbed her arm. "What did you see?" Zara swallowed hard. "Your people fought them before, long ago." The figure spread its clawed hands. "And now, you wake me. A choice that cannot be undone." The chamber shook violently as more lights flickered to life. Zara realized this was never just a prison. It was a tomb. If this being had been locked away, then others had been too. Cole's voice was tense. "I'm guessing we don't want that door opening all the way." Zara nodded. "We need to shut it down. Now." The ancient being laughed. "You think you can stop me? You cannot fight what you do not understand." Cole smirked. "Lady, I've been fighting things I don't understand since the day I was born." He grabbed the nearest console and ripped out the wiring. A high-pitched alarm blared. The vault's unlocking sequence halted. The figure snarled. "You dare!" Zara acted on instinct. She rushed the control panel, her fingers flying over the keys. If she could overload the power core, she could shut the entire system down. The being moved to stop her. Cole tackled it. The impact sent both of them crashing into the wall. Cole was smaller, weaker, but he fought anyway. His knife flashed, cutting deep into the being's side. It roared in pain. Zara didn't waste the opening. She slammed her hand down on the console. Override sequence activated. The chamber shook violently. The vault door slammed shut, locking the horrors inside. The ancient being screamed in fury. Zara grabbed Cole's arm. "We need to go." Together, they ran. The last stand. The tunnels collapsed behind them. The ancient being howled, its voice echoing through the ruins. Zara didn't look back. They burst into the open air, just as the entire underground structure gave way. Dust and debris filled the sky. Cole coughed. "Tell me that thing's buried for good." Zara stared at the ruins. She didn't know, and that terrified her. Cole exhaled, then grinned. "So, you saved the galaxy today." Zara glanced at him. "So did you." He stretched, rolling his shoulders. "Not bad for a primitive species, huh?" Zara smirked. "Not bad at all. The beginning of something new." Hours later, they'd reached a remote clearing, far from Solarian forces. Zara patched her communicator into a scrambled frequency, the only safe signal she could send. Cole leaned against a tree. "What now?" Zara took a deep breath. "Now, I make sure my people never find you." Cole frowned. "That gonna make you a traitor?" She hesitated. "Yes." He watched her, then nodded. "Worth it?" She looked at him. The human who had saved her life. The one who had proven everything she thought she knew was wrong. She gave a small smile. "Yes." As the ship descended to take them off-world, Zara knew one thing for certain. The real story of humans was only just beginning.